Hi, welcome to the Funding Blueprint, Unlocking Startup Success, presented by StartHub. I'm Cody Goff, and today you're going to learn about equity. How can you make sure this important tool is actually working for you? How can you cultivate a culture that actually helps employees understand the value of their equity? And how can that benefit the company? We'll also get into employee stock ownership plans, or ESOPs, and how equity can produce some very good and very bad outcomes. We'll get into all of that with today's guest, Jason Atkins. Jason is a startup equity hacker, a former CFO and investor, and the co-founder and president of Cake Equity. Cake Equity is on a mission to accelerate startup team motivation through equity ownership. And Jason is leading the Cake community by pushing the boundary of how startup equity can work. That means he's enabling more people to participate in equity ownership and build awesome companies with an employee ownership culture, and as much liquidity as possible. To start our conversation, I asked him to explain what does he see wrong with equity, and why does the world need a startup equity hacker anyway? Here's what Jason told me.
Where do I start? I guess a founder like me just sees so many ways to improve the world. And so, I guess as a starting point, no one really understands their equity, Founders don't understand it well. Their teams don't understand it. And, I guess founders are kind of giving away 10% of their company and getting no value for it. It's a bit of a nightmare. These companies can be worth 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, and, 10 to 20% of their equity is out there with their teams. But, a lot of these employee equity programs are pretty broken, So, from an education standpoint, from a functionality standpoint, these programs are just not great. I think that the balance between investors and employees is too skewed towards investors as well. These at the moment, you see valuations are down, and the poor old employees normally get their equity squeezed right out, right out the window. I hate seeing that. There's a few problems that we're trying to tackle.
I can relate to that. I worked for a startup, and I was not given equity, but I was given an employee's. It wasn't an employee stock purchase plan, but I was basically given shares.
Yeah,
in the company.
There's lots of different kinds, but it's for all intents and purposes, it's you want a bit of ownership in the company, you want to get some dividends if there's going to be any, you want to be part of the exit, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, and I wasn't part of the exit because it turns out I was brought on too early, and only people that participated in the last funding round got anything. You've seen this before.
I hate hearing these stories. It's such a nightmare because, the value of these companies are all built by the teams, especially in those first few years. And quite often, the equity plans just aren't well set up. The investors have too much power, or whatever it is, and the teams end up with nothing, and it's totally uncool.
Yeah, well, let's talk solutions. I'll try not to get too emotional about it. It was a while
back. How much money
did
you leave on the table? Don't tell us. It can be a lot of money, right? If you get in early, and something goes to IPO, it can be a lot of money.
It wasn't that much, and I ended up with a role in the company that acquired that company, so it worked out okay.
Cool.
I would like to hear, let's give a really concrete example of how this can go right? Tell me about one specific example of how you've looked at some place, worked with a startup, you don't have to name names, and been hey, do this with equity, and how it really impacted or changed their business for the better.
Yeah, so, equity is one of those things where you use it a lot. So I was trying to think of one amazing example where I, changed somebody's life, and I don't want to claim to have that kind of impact, but I'll give you an example. So when we first started out, we were trying to see how this stuff was working, and pretty much every ESOP, share option plan or whatever, it was broken. And we designed a one-click ESOP. So founders don't need to worry. They don't need to go backwards and forwards from their account and their lawyer. They just click a button in Cake. They get all the legal agreements, the whole workflow. It's all done for them. All the decisions are made. They just get best practice ESOP. So that was a pretty cool step forward. And then I think it was around 2021, maybe early 2022, was the first amazing founder usage of Cake. So we had a company come through the top accelerator in Australia, and he was a second-time founder, and he trusted Cake, and he went in and he said, right, I want to run a safe round. I'm going to hit this button, and I'm going to use all Cake's documents. And so he was able to, on his own, without any attorneys or accountants, run his whole safe round and then set up his ESOP and run that as well, like all on his own. So like that's going to save him weeks or months of legal and accounting technical pain and 5 or 10 grand. So, I really do love seeing Cake used in that way, where equity is kind of one click and digital and seamless, as opposed to, I guess very manual, old school and traditional. And then that's at the small end of town, accelerator end of it. At the big end of town, we have customers that are issuing, say, 600 offer letters out to, their global team, which can be 6 or 8 countries. I don't know. I think this particular customer's got 6 or 8 countries where their team are, and they had not implemented an equity plan at all because it was just way too hard, because each country has different rules. Some countries you can't even really do equity. You kind of have to do a fandom plan. So we were able to help them set up equity in some countries and options in some countries and a phantom plan in another country, and then send out, 600 offer letters out all around the world. So to be part of like totally unblocking that company, to have a global equity plan, have all these people participating in the success of the company going forward is something that, we're really, really proud about.
Wow. So for anybody listening, what is there like a short list of countries where there's less friction? Obviously you've got Australia figured out, right? But where else?
Yeah. So the least friction, like Singapore's a great country for that. They're very, very open. You don't need any special vowels. There's not a lot of like difficult rules. They have like quite a nice open financial system, which you would probably expect from Singapore. Like they're known for that. The big hubs are, the US out of Delaware, like that's dominant. Singapore acts as a hub for Southeast Asia, and the UK acts as a hub for Europe. And look, they have really strong systems when it comes to equity and employee equity. So they're all good countries. And then some of the more difficult countries, like the worst couple that are kind of mainstream startup countries would probably be Germany and France. Like they are like diabolical. Like you almost can't even do employee equity. So most countries would do like a shadow scheme, which is more like just part of a bonus plan. You kind of get the same benefits as an employee, but it's not really equity. And so that's where, some companies will choose that if the country's just too challenging, too many variables. Like in Germany, you need to sign everything like with wet ink still. Like you need to actually get like paper documents signed in a lot of cases. And there's a whole range of complexities there that hurt the startups.
I believe the IRS in the US has like a vault in a cave somewhere where they actually keep file cabinets of all tax records. So no country's perfect.
I was loath to give any country like really high marks when it comes to stuff because it's pretty complex. And you've normally got like the SEC and the IRS conflicting, and then you got state laws and you got employment law. And so like, it's never like really, really easy. But one thing we've done at Cake, which we're really proud of and we want to keep doubling down on, is we call it the Cake way. So it's like, yeah, there might be 5 ways to do this, but we think this is the best way. Just do it this way. And there's a lot of people out there that are like, cool, like as long as you worked out a good way, we're happy to do it that way. And so like in the US, we would advocate that you would, always use options, and you would always do like NSO, non-qualified stock options, because it is so much more flexible. And like founders don't want to know every little tax rule and every little law. They just want to like have a good plan and motivate their team and like, build their company. So we try and remove all that messy technical jargon and just tell people like this is the best way to do it. And we find that actually people really love that.
Is the Cake way one size fits all, no matter the industry or what they're trying to do?
Yeah, like with tech, it's very industry agnostic, but it doesn't work for everyone. So if you've got this or that existing, then perhaps you need to stick that way, like, because it's hard to unwind things once you set them up. But if you start things off simply from day one, you can normally continue to operate in that really simple way, all the way through the journey. But we in Australia, it's been a bit easier because we're very dominant. In the US, we're having to find our way, and each country is different. So we've been learning our way, as we go through the different countries. But our goal is that people trust us enough to know what best practice is, so that they could just say, "Hey, I want an ESOP," and they get one, and they don't have to know all the other complexities because they know that we've done that hard work for them. And so that's what we're working towards all the time.
Yeah. Is what you're doing something that no startup founder would ever think in a million years as a possible way to approach it? Or is it just you've kind of optimized and found the best way to approach equity for most companies?
It's more about just optimizing the noise. So unfortunately, without something like Cake, every single ESOP is done from scratch. It's a nightmare. The lawyers explain everything to the founder, and the founder's allowed to choose things. The founders don't know anything. No offense. The founders are good at, they probably came out the wrong way, but I've been in finance for 15, 20 years, and I get explained this stuff, and I'm like, what? So many variables, and they conflict with each other, And so how is a regular, engineer founder or marketing founder or whatever that's putting a team together that's trying to solve so many complex problems, how are they going to be able to properly understand all this information and make the right decision? So in our opinion, what our job is to analyze all this information and show the best path, so that every single time founders all around have to do it, they don't have to learn it all themselves. We've done that for them.
Now, if I'm a startup founder and I'm listening to this and I've already offered equity and given some away, is it ever too late to right the ship?
The best improvements you can make is by implementing an ownership culture in your startup. So the biggest mistake they make, they might navigate the financial legal element correctly, but they've spent all their energy doing that, and they don't have time to actually create real value in their people and culture to actually, like I said before, just say they've got 10% in an ESOP and they've sent these legal agreements out. Quite often the employees don't even know what they own. They don't know what it's worth. They might think they have a tax problem or they've heard a bad story from their friend and they're like, oh yeah, this crap's worth nothing. Literally that's quite common. And so the very first thing, the best thing they can do is implement an employee ownership culture. Show your team you care about them. Show them that you care about their equity, that you care about the value of their equity, that you're all in this together. Show them that if no matter what happens, you're going to back them, you're going to fight for them, you're going to make sure that if you get an exit, they get an exit, and that you're all in this together. Talk about the value in the all hands. When you do investor update, do an employee update. We've got tools in Cake that help you with this, to just build trust, build connection to the equity, build, real value as a team. And then once they've got skin in the game, they're going to, I don't mean to say too manipulative, but they're going to work harder. They're going to be more aligned. We're working for each other to succeed together. And this is a much better place to work. And you should have a more productive and engaged and retained team, which is so important when you're tackling the many challenges that you have to, in startup land.
Is there a correlation between companies that have done equity right and their success at scaling up because of the way it's implemented and those downstream effects like you talked about with the employee ownership in the culture? Are highly engaged companies typically more successful?
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty. I don't have all the stats with me today, but there's plenty of information out there about, high quality people want to work for companies where they have skin in the game and they know that their ownership is going to be valued and trusted. There's great studies out there that show productivity increases from employee ownership and retention, like employee retention benefits, to employee ownership. So look, it's a well-known tool when done correctly for building better companies and building better teams. And on the flip side, you can really crush and demotivate a team when this is done badly. So for example, startups have been having a hard time. It's no surprise. Valuations are down across the board. It's no surprise. A really bad way to do it would be to not tell your team what their options are worth. They're going to assume the worst. And, but a really good way to tackle it would be you can reset your option pool. Like if you have had 50, 70%, valuation reduction, like if, just be honest about it, be open about it, reset the options, reset the strike price, keep your team engaged, keep them motivated, attract, engage, retain them. So yeah, like I think, I can't give you a specific example. We were doing this with thousands of startups like all around the world, but there's great studies out there, and we just see this sort of month in, month out.
At what point do these details need to be, you think, sorted out? Really, really in great detail. Basically, what I'm saying is, if I'm a founder, I've got an idea, I've got a couple people, I think I know what I want to build. Hey, will you do some help for me? Will you help me a little bit? I'll maybe give you some equity in an email, right? But there's nothing locked down. Like, how early in that process does it need to be set in stone?
Yeah, so like my answer, and I'll give you two answers. I'll give you what I love to see, I'll give you like the let's take it a bit easier answer. So the really strict answer that I love to see is like raising that first round is the hardest round. Like pre-seed, it's the hardest round. You've got no runs on the board, you've got no track record, you normally got no investor network. And so you're scrapping so hard to raise any capital, and it normally runs out much faster than you think. And then the next round is also really difficult. So I think you should do it straight away. I think you should get your advisors on a little bit of sweat equity. You should definitely get your first hires with some equity. You should be doing a little bit of sweat equity, like you can use your ESOP to pay, like just say you can get some engineering work done or some marketing work done. A lot of these high quality people will take like half cash, half equity. And you don't want to do too much of this, of course, but it does help you extend your runway and helps you build trust. Like if you've got advisors that are not getting anything and they're kind of helping you, like they're going to help you with, there's less incentive for them to help you than if they're getting a bit of equity, So I just think it helps you build trust. It helps you extend your runway, like get into it like early on. Now, another very common and logical school of thought is that you probably wait a bit longer, You get through that first bit and you get maybe to your seed round, and you might be around sort of like 10 people or so then, and, you might do it around then. So those are probably the two like main starting points.
So a couple different ways to approach it. Is there a particular specific financial decision that you think an aspiring entrepreneur needs to make when setting up their business?
Yeah, it was interesting. This is not like so much equity related, although it is to a degree. So for me, one of the biggest lessons I have is that like the faster you learn and the faster you hit your milestones, the better everything is to do with your finances. So if you raise, $500,000 and you're burning 40 grand a month, you've got 12 months, right? But if you need to spend 42 grand a month or 43 grand a month, if you can learn like quite a bit quicker, I would advocate doing that. So just be aware that the biggest financial cost you have is that you're burning a big amount of money every month. So you've just got to move, learn, iterate, hit your milestones. For me, that's like ultra critical and is always not super obvious when you're looking at a financial forecast. And what that does is it means you can raise less money, which means you dilute less, and you can even skip a whole round. Like one of the things you need to learn fast is what's going to be your scalable marketing or sales channels. Everybody starts off doing founder-led sales. But the quicker you can get to, say, whatever marketing channel is going to work for you, the quicker you can learn that, you could skip a whole round. Like you could go seed, Series A, but if it takes you a while to learn that, you got to run like a bridge in between. That's dilution. So for me, it's like learn as fast as you can, and then you can raise less, and you can raise at higher valuations, and that's a massive like financial impact that can be millions down the track.
Okay. Well, then I hope this podcast is a massive success because this is a marketing tool.
Right.
And those are good to get started, but podcasts are tricky. So I guess we'll all find out together. I got because I loved earlier. I just want to go back real quick to it seems like you really care a lot about about all of this. Obviously, of course, you work in it, but also like, when I mentioned my not so great experience, your reaction was very like, oh, I hate that. Like, is there anything else you see entrepreneurs doing or happening to them that like, you're just like, please stop doing that. Oh, I hate hearing this story. Like, please just do this and you'll be in better shape to not make that same mistake.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, the first couple of years of founder journeys is just full of this stuff, and I've been through it too, so I'm not criticizing anyone, but like, you're going to learn so much so fast, and you're just constantly making mistakes. If I could call a couple of things out, because, I educate, mentor, and capital raising constantly, I would just love to see the funding process totally changed to be much more streamlined, much more digital, and just way less messy, way less meetings. Like almost every founder I talk to just like hates the capital raising process. It's the worst part of their entrepreneurial journey. And I would just love to see that improved. I've built like a capital raising toolkit to help founders kind of learn the steps and make fewer mistakes. And we're looking to try and productize that at Cake over the next little while to try and help match investors to startups and minimize the pain there. So just that capital raising journey, I think I'll probably double down on that. I mean, there's lots of different things, but I just hate seeing how hard that is. It sucks seeing founders going through all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it seems very convoluted, and it's just like, why it's already hard enough to start up a business and believe in it and get a team behind you and all that, and then you've got all these extra steps, and then the legalese we talked about earlier.
So hard. Yeah.
It's definitely an uphill battle. Yeah. So if someone wants to work with Cake, where do they find you, and how do you like it? Is it prohibitively difficult to work with you if they're halfway across the world, or talk a little about, a little self promo?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm easy to find. I'm all over LinkedIn like crazy. So just connect with me and hit me up. My email is jason@cakeequity.com. So I'm not hard to find. I run office hours for founders as well. So just come and find me if you want to chat. That's really easy. Our website is a wonderful resource. That's cakeequity.com. We have like capital raising, ESOPs, tools, guides, blogs. We have event webinars. Like, it is a tremendous resource for startups, and it's very focused towards equity, of course. There's content on there for lots of different countries. We've done content for APAC and Southeast Asia and the UK and the US. So wherever you are in the world, there's quite probably some content on there. Cake works really well in, the 20, 50 countries plus. We're very global. So no matter where you are, Cake can work for you. If you're working with another provider and you want to switch, that's a really easy process as well. So don't be scared, to check us out if it's currently not working for you as well.
Great. And Jason, you also host the podcast Startup Equity Matters, which is designed for early stage founders and their teams. So talk about that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that as well. So recently, we decided to do a very niche podcast about startup equity. Equity is just used right across the startup journey, from every round you ever raise to exiting to employee equity. And it's kind of an opaque space, it's not very easily accessible. So on the podcast, we're getting like experts like lawyers and accountants and stuff on to some degree, but it's more about like great stories of founder journeys, like exits, capital raising. We're just trying to unpack like great stories from cool people in the industry to help everybody learn, how to build a great startup with that equity slant. So yeah, like, it's been really incredible for me to have these great guests on. I'm learning so much, and we're getting some great feedback. So it's an exciting sort of little side project, and something I'm really keen to do more of.
Awesome. Well, you can find links to follow Jason in the show notes of today's episode. And again, that podcast is Startup Equity Matters. Thanks so much, Jason. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, man.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Remember, employee ownership has a lot of benefits, from increased productivity to retention, so much more. It's a tool, so remember to use it right. And if you need help, then get yourself some Cake at cakeequity.com. In the meantime, quick reminder that you can watch the video version of this podcast on Spotify or YouTube, and you can tap the follow button on your favorite podcast app to automatically get new episodes for free every week. The Funding Blueprint is produced by me, Cody Goff, with audio and video editing by Sean Patel. Sean is great, so if you are looking for exceptional sound design or audio-video production work, then get in touch with Sean at seanpatel.com. You can find links to Sean's website and everything else in the description of today's episode. Thanks again for joining me, and have a great week.